Hello everyone, it's the Chicken here once again, and welcome to yet another Far Cry 5 build, and let me introduce you to the Nature Girl. The bravest woman in the world, the closest woman to nature. That's right, this girl's all about nature and wildlife, and killing all of the Peggies that threaten it. In this build, you will embrace the wild animal inside of you by mastering the art of archery and throwing knives, using bait to lure wild predators to clear out enemies, all while traveling with the most loyal cougar and grizzly bear that Montana has to offer. Let's get started with the backstory. The Nature Girl was born into a family of wildlife experts in the state of Alaska. Her family immediately knew that she would share their love of the outdoors, thus naming her Autumn. Ever since the age of 4, she would often tag along in her father and uncle's annual camping trips into the Alaskan wilderness. It was her love of the various plants and wildlife is what also sparked her love for art. She would spend hours outside of her family's forest home sketching various birds and trees, only the demand of her parents would get her to stop. At the age of 10, her uncle introduced her into the world of hunting and fishing. Her first time shooting a bow was only a few days later. Every spring and fall, her father and uncle would take the Nature Girl hunting and every summer fishing. This led to her ever-growing knowledge of surviving out in the wilderness. Despite her being invested into hunting, she loved the wildlife and would often take short hikes with her mother and her 2 sisters, often attempting to feed any docile animals that passed by. However, at the age of 12, tragedy struck when the Nature Girl's mother passed away from terminal cancer. When her 18th birthday rolled around, her uncle gifted her his own hunting bow. She was then moved to tears after naming the bow Lisa after her mother. When she turned 21, she said goodbye to Alaska and moved to Washington State to further her studies in wildlife. Only 7 months after settling down on her own, her father called her and delivered her the grave news that her uncle died while hunting. She was devastated knowing her uncle her entire life and him being almost like a second father to her. She quickly came back to Alaska to mourn the death of her uncle. A year after living with her father, she decided to follow in her uncle's footsteps and go into law enforcement. After tough training and never-ending determination, she finally became a rookie deputy to Sheriff Whitehorse under the Hope County Sheriff's Department. Her first assignment seemed like a huge challenge, but one that she would take with pride. The task of taking in a cult leader seemed not too bad, but it was revealed to be the biggest challenge of her life, resulting in her squad being captured and on her own. After leaving Dutch's bunker, she realizes that she must resort to her natural instincts. The rules of society were out of the picture. This was the wild, and she must make it hers if she wants to take down Eden's Gate. There are no specific requirements for cosmetics other than the obvious choice of the Far Cry Primal top and bottom for this build. Having thrown away all rules of society, she's rooting to her primal instincts. However, if you do not have the Far Cry Primal top and bottom, resort to any hunting gear that you have available. In order to fully embrace the wild nature inside of you, the obvious choice of weaponry would be the recurve bow. This will be the ultimate defense for any woman or man truly of nature. You'll also use a combination of throwing knives at your disposal as well as bait to give yourselves the advantage. For the more difficult and tricky prey, you're going to want to equip a 308 carbine with polished wood camo with a marksman's scope and a suppressor, and also name it Dante, since that was her uncle's name. This build is pretty similar to the Rambo build when it comes to perks. Starting off with the Survivalist branch, you're going to want to invest some perk points into Human Fish, Fisher King, King of the Jungle, Harvest Master, and of course all tiers of health boost. The reasoning behind leaving out the Repair Torch is that the Animal Wrangler is not greedy and knows her boundaries not to loot and scavenge unless absolutely necessary, and also does not have the knowledge capable of repairing vehicles. Next up, we have the Renegade branch with Parachute, Wingsuit, and Rifle Mastery. From Assassin, we will want to get Grapple, Nimble Fingers, Sneaky Sprint, Takedown Mastery, Primal Mastery, Close Combat Mastery, Throwback, as well as Ghost. From Prepper, you'll want to grab Close Combat Gear Bag, Journey Pack, Quiver, Rifle Ammo Bag, Throwables Bag, and additional holster. The third weapon slot is up to you, but it's not required. And from the Leader branch, you'll want to grab the perks for Peaches and Cheeseburger, since they are the most wild and ferocious specialists available. It is up to you whether you want to swap one of them with Boomer, but Peaches and Cheeseburger fit the aesthetic of this build the best. Despite being closer to nature than most, the nature girl will have to resort to the society within her and use vehicles when the need arises. Obviously, this is Far Cry, you're going to have to drive around like it or not. When it comes to taking on enemies, similarly to Rambo, you're going to want to try to take enemies out silently with your bow and throwing knives. Every now and then mix it up by throwing out bait, letting wild predators have their way with them peggies. In those situations where stealth is completely not an option, you're going to want to also use your incendiary arrows as well as Dante. Since you are playing as a woman who loves nature more than almost anything, there should be plenty of times where you are not completing missions and should just be taking in nature. Whether that is hunting or fishing, set some time aside for that. And that is it. That is the Nature Girl build in Far Cry 5. This build is the equivalent of sticks and stones can break my bones, and please don't shoot me. It's a lot more fun than it sounds, and trust me, you're gonna have a lot of fun running around with peaches and cheeseburger and shooting people with Lisa. Of course, I have more Far Cry 5 builds coming up in the future, and I am very excited to offer you more of those. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Later.